So the first I want to know why Gent? I mean, what is the mentality or what made you like it?
Well, the whole style to begin with, that's quite new. That term for this music. What do you understand when you think of gent? Because a lot of people think different things about it, and for me personally, I just see textures, for example, still as progressive metal, but the
Mm-hmm.
modern version or modern metal or something.
Mm-hmm.
And gent, yeah, it's for me, it's not an accepted term yet, I must say. It is a sort of style for now. You see a lot of new, really progressive and really heavy metal bands, and I get it. But for me, it's still progressive metal in a
Mm-hmm.
way. I get it also that there should be a sort of new term because of when you think of prog metal, you think of Dream Theater and that kind of stuff, and that's quite heavy and it is progressive, but it's not that low tuned. It's not focused on breakdowns so much. It's not so aggressive. It's not so raw as this really modern progressive metal as Gent in this
Mm-hmm.
case. So yeah, it's okay to call it Gent. For me, it feels a bit weird, I must say, but it's a good way to call something. Yeah, like it's something really new of last maybe 10 years that these
Mm-hmm.
kind of bands pop out of anywhere now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and let's get a little bit more technical. How do you get that tight sound?
The tight sound. What do you mean with that,
Like with the
especially?
guitar, the thing that the sound is so tight most of the time in Gent. I mean, that's about it. So, how do you approach it? Is it more about uh, your playing guitar, or is it more like in the mixing process, or both? Or tell me about it.
Yeah, I think you mean tight. Also, in this kind of music, there's a lot of stuff being played with patterns. Da 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 da. So there's a lot of silences.
Mhm.
I think that's what you mean with tight. Of course,
Yeah,
with
exactly.
any metal band, you have to play tight. So also Lamb of God
Yeah, but
or whatever, they
not
all those bands
only
are tight.
note wise. I mean, it's like most of the time in gents, you feel like there's gate on everything. That's
Yeah,
the feeling, because when there's a silence, there is like silence,
true. Yeah,
and it doesn't come down slowly or doesn't fade that much. It's just sudden silence.
yeah. So I see it as the art of muting,
Mhm.
not the art of using gates. Of course, in textures we use some noise gate, but not really to make that silence. The silence should come from your palm muting and really muting your strings with your hands.
Mhm.
And next to that, you can do a noise gate to help against some noise or some of the fizz, of an amp. When an amp is really loud, you always hear some kind of that. That's what I use a noise gate for. But there are really extreme bands also in this gent genre that really overuse the gates, which also generates a sort of new sound. Like it almost cuts away the attack of your pick attack, and it
Mhm.
only gets like da 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 instead of if you hit your guitar. Normally you hear ja ja, you hear a sort of attack.
Mhm.
So, uh,
Which one do you prefer?
well, I always play without noise gate. Also, we record it without noise gate. So you play or you mute the best as you can. And if there's anything then happening in that silence, you just manually cut it away. That's
Mhm.
our philosophy always been in textures.
So you let
And
it happen first and then you edit it.
if it happens, yeah. But live, also, we don't really have a noise gate there. Just tiny bit. It's like hardly on.
Mhm,
If you turn it
mhm,
off, you just hear some fizz, but
mhm,
not. Yeah, I can let my chord ring for like half a minute or like really long. And if you have your noise gate really tight, then it will not ring for 5 seconds. So you and then it's gone.
mhm.
So that's, yeah, it eats from your sound as well, I think. And that's what I
Yeah.
want to
Wow.
avoid.
Mhm. And I think it's about the sound you want to produce. Some people want to do it that way because they don't care about like if there's like an organic sound of the guitar. Some think that it should be there because it's music.
Yeah, some bands really pull it to the extreme, and then
Mhm,
also the whole band sounds more like industrial, almost like
mhm.
non-human sounds. And that's cool also, it's a choice. That's how I see it.
So you already answered my next question, which I'm happy.
Right.
And then I would like to know, do you have a fixed series of pedals when you want to make a djent sound? Or if yes, what are they, in which order? I mean, is it
um
different from the time that you want to play a melodical progressive metal?
um well, yeah, a bit. But with textures, we always were searching for a sound that you can play with it. Open chords. That's what textures is about a lot as well. Like 7-string open chords. So you hear 7 strings next to each other,
Mm-hmm.
uh, ringing out. And if you do that with a super high gain sound, that's not going to be so nice sounding. So we
Mm-hmm.
always, yeah, we're searching for sort of, it is a high gain sound, but not like Pantera high gain, like on 10, as it
Mm-hmm.
sounds like. So we are always, yeah, with the gain roughly halfway, so to
Mm-hmm.
say. And then you can really use it for heavy riffing, but also for chord progressions, for more rock stuff. So it
Mm-hmm.
is possible to use that for both, I think.
But
And
would
for
you
the
tell me
really
like,
melodic stuff, we do a different patch. We've always used, well, actually in the back, I don't know if you see it. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
the
Yeah.
the PV here. We've
Mm-hmm.
used that for, I think, 15 years
Mm-hmm.
touring. Um, so you can switch a few channels there,
Mm-hmm.
three actually.
Mm-hmm.
And before that, we had a G major effects pedal,
Mm-hmm.
which you can switch the effects, but also with that one, you can switch the channel on this amp. So we had
Mm-hmm.
one high gain and one lower gain and one super low gain, almost clean. Very clean, we never used. So it's always tiny bit of gain, like a tiny bit of grit in the clean sounds. So the low gain, the middle one, we used for chord progressions and yeah, some lead lines and that kind of stuff. And the first channel, the main high gain channel, is really for riffing.
Mm-hmm.
And the last 3 years or 4 years of textures, we used a Kemper profiler.
Mm-hmm.
So before that, we were working out with lifting that heavy thing over there. But after that, it was just all the campers in one big flight case, and that was our live setup. It was really much more practical,
Mm-hmm.
but same kind of sounds and really good sounding.
Mm-hmm. So if you want to tell me like a series of pedal that you put for your guitar when you want to play djent, how would you name them? Like from the start.
Yeah, well, I think we're a bit different than the general Gen band.
Mm-hmm.
So we only use this as the distortion and some EQ to brighten the sound a bit.
Mhm.
but not any pedals in front of our amp. Also with the
Okay.
Kemper, we're not using
Mhm.
any
They
tube
put it
screamer
all on top.
simulation or something.
Mhm.
I know that a lot of bands do that, like a booster in front of the amp. It can work really well. We've done it with a few recordings. If I say it well, we've on the second album we've used a Mesa Boogie dual rectifier, for example, and that's
Mhm.
yeah, that's it's a brutal sound, but not so tight. And then you need to use a tube screamer in front of it.
Mhm.
But mainly we used a 5150, like the old version of this one,
Mhm.
and without a pedal in front of it. So sorry, I don't have a real chain. We
No, but
just really
actually
have
that's
a 50
experience.
for all the
And
albums. We have a 5150, but really cranked super loud, so you
mhm.
really hear the valves, the tubes working, and that gives that yeah, that direct and really aggressive sound.
Mhm. Nice. That's
Yeah,
new information actually to me.
yeah. All the bands I see, everybody has a booster. That's true, but
Mhm.
yeah, then for me, that fact that you can use open chords over 7 string or 6 strings chords
Mhm.
with some extra notes, a bit clustered chords. When you do that with a booster, then it gets so fizzy and yeah, too bright, too aggressive in the high end, and that
Mhm.
yeah, it takes away the warmth of those chords.
Nice. So, what do you think is the most important thing when you're playing Gent as a player?
To play tight,
Mm-hmm.
not only muting and making things silent, but really play tight, but also groove. I think that's also like from this kind of new progressive bands. A lot of it is focused on groove. I'm constantly thinking back on the original progressive music, that how it started. It was just progressive with technical stuff and weird time signatures and weird polyrhythms and that kind of stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
now it's more and more focused on groove
Mm-hmm.
and use of patterns and syncopation and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. What about the mixing side of it? What do you think it's most important than the mixing part?
For making this kind of modern sound, you mean?
Yep. For
Um,
you, for your sound.
if I zoom out on the music of textures, the main thing that we want to accomplish as a band is it should sound big, simply. So
Mm-hmm.
you can do a lot of layering and make it sound big, but also it should sound aggressive and direct. And the way to do that is, yeah, you can add layers, but it should not sound like 20 guitars playing at the same time, because we just have two guitarists in the band. So that's really a mixing thing. We always kept in mind that you mix it, that you really hear two guitarists in your face all the time, and all the layering is always behind that, lower in the mix. It can
Mm-hmm.
add, it can like decorate your mix, but it should not be as loud as all the other stuff. So always two guitars in the front who play the main role, and the
Mm-hmm.
layering is just to yeah, fatten up your sound, or adding an octave or something doesn't really sound like an extra guitar player, but it really adds to your sound and the overall mix.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the strong part of textures. Like it's super aggressive and it feels also real, like not industrial like, because you really hear two guitars, bass, and a drummer, like really
Mm-hmm.
band playing, um, and and things around that.
Do you mix your own guitars?
What do you mean on the albums?
Yeah. for your songs anyway? Like when
But
you're playing Djent, do you uh mix it yourself? Like the main question is that if you do, what are the plugins you use for Djent guitar? That's the main question. But first I want to know like if you do it or you just give it to the mixing man.
well, with textures, we the other guitar player Jochem Jacobs mixed all the albums, and I was there to co-mix. So I've been looking together with him, making decisions together with him on some parts of the albums. But
Mm-hmm.
he did all the mixing stuff. Um, but sound wise for guitars, we all made those the decisions together, and
Mm-hmm.
we actually never, for those albums, we never used plugins. So we always used real amps and just a few effects, pedals.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I'm
Pedal.
producing myself as well. I'm recording for like 12 years now, like in my own studio. And of course, yeah, have some progressive bands here or just metal bands.
Mm-hmm.
And I prefer real amps still quite a lot, but doing more and more with the Kemper as well. Um, and Kemper, yeah, there's a lot of things possible. Of course, you can choose any amp, any effect. Like the possibilities are endless.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but main guitar plugins that I know, because I didn't really use that a lot because I've always been busy with amps and just the Kemper for a few years now.
Mm-hmm.
But the plugins, um, Neural DSP has, yeah, really awesome stuff. I'm just into that for a few years now, just checking it out, also making demos, especially with that because it's practical to use that. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
never really using that for like an actual release or actual full length album.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really, yeah, it's those kind of stuff I'm really into more and more now. But I'm not sure if I ever would use it for an album. Maybe I'm old school or something.
It's your style anyway. The sound you produce is yours, so
Yeah, yeah,
nobody's
but
business.
sorry.
Nobody's business.
No, that's right.
You
But
just
yeah,
yeah, you just choose your audience, I guess.
yeah, and maybe it's has to do with the beginning of Textures. Well, we first album we recorded around 2001,
Mm-hmm.
2002, like pretty long ago. And back then, there all the plugins for guitars were like crap. It's like Guitar Rig was back then, and some free plugins I checked out back then, and already very soon I was like, "Ugh, plugins is not for me." And
Mm-hmm.
so
Actually, that's good because you guys focused more on like your techniques of playing.
yeah,
No.
and we're happy with the real amp sound. We're lucky we had a really good rehearsal space where we can really experiment with that, and also in the studios that we've been in, can always experiment with a lot of amps, nice rooms, nice microphones, like a whole set of effects and that kind of stuff, just to
Mm-hmm.
experiment with, like really touching the knobs and really trying out things, instead of with your mouse clicking. I don't know.
It
That's
is
uh,
different.
that's different.
Mm-hmm. So, fun question for me. What
Hmm.
is the hardest thing about Gent and what is the most fun thing about it?
Okay. Um, the hardest thing, yeah, doing a show, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's and very technical. Well, that's fun to play, of course, but physically, especially with textures, we always had the mindset like, okay, we should just on stage, we should be like young dogs, go crazy, run around, headbang as hard as you can. Especially on certain parts. Okay, in the middle of this song is that big groove. Everybody should be doing that all the time at those points somewhere in those songs. So it's a lot of fun as well, but it's physically quite heavy. So
Do you guys do sports to be always ready?
no, well, during textures, I didn't go to the gym or something because we did so many shows, and that felt like a workout. Really come back from the stage like the whole t-shirt just wet. You can just
Wow.
take your sweat out like that. So
Yeah, you had your
that
own
was
kind.
back then, and now
Yeah.
we've stopped for 3 years, and now I notice like, hey, I should keep running every now and then because I'm not sweating on stage.
Yes, actually. Yeah.
Yeah,
Especially
so
for the
yeah, that's the
singer.
hard part, but it's also the fun part, of course.
Mhm. So
Uh,
they're the same to you.
Sorry?
The fun part and the hard part is the same. The life.
Yeah, I think so.
Mhm.
I'm thinking what else can be hard. Yeah, writing songs cannot be easy, but it's also the most fun part of being a musician. I think I really
Mhm.
really love it, and sometimes you really have to break your head, and it takes months for a songs to finish. And sometimes the song is finished in 2 weeks. So it really depends.
Well, do you mix riffs and melodies differently?
Yes, for sure. To begin with, the riff is like really heavy and high gain, and melodies is always very much less gain. So you process them, yeah, quite different. With compression, for example, if you have clean leads, sort of picking pattern, and it's almost clean or really low gain, then you can really compress it a bit so you get a nice twang, like the attack comes out a bit more. But
Mhm.
riffing guitars, you never compress at all because high gain, high gain amp that's cranked out loud, that is already compression. You have distortion pushing your whole signal to like this sausage. So
Mhm.
that is compression. There's no need to use
No way.
compression on high gain
And there's
guitars.
not much differences to balance out also.
No, no, because it's all loud.
Yeah, it's
That's
all that.
easy. Yeah.
So, and compressors to go?
Compressors.
Your
uh
favorite compressors, like the ones you use mostly?
Waves. I have the Waves bundle, which I always come back to. CLA. I have a real one over here,
Oh yeah,
TLA.
can I see it?
Yeah, one of the few that I have as hardware compressors over here. But yeah, that and Steven Slate bundle I have, which has some really nice models in there.
Mhm.
That's actually the main things that I work with. Sometimes I try out some other stuff. Fab Filter has some cool stuff, but yeah, Waves I always come back to, I must say.
Mhm. And fave amp, preamp, pedals, and why they are your favorite?
Mm, well, I recently borrowed this one from my friend because I want to buy it myself, but never had the time to do that.
Oh
Strymon
yeah,
Big Sky.
that's awesome.
We've used that on the Textures albums for sure.
Hmm.
Uh, for the reverb, yeah, it's really nice, warm reverb with a lot of options. Really analog sound, and yeah, the main guitar sound that I'm always working with now is still 5150. I come back to that,
Hmm.
and but also mixing that together with JCM 800 Marshall for the really more raw sounding stuff. That's the thing for me. It always works, and you can use it for really aggressive stuff. But if you tone it down a tiny bit, it can be really warm and like for heavy rock sounding stuff. That's really nice. Yeah, yeah. I have a lot of effects that I normally use. Also for the clean stuff for textures, for example, we use a detuner, like a sort of chorus,
Mm-hmm.
quite a lot. And yeah, but yeah, we've done a lot with just pedals also in the past.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you improvise for solos or you plan them ahead?
No, I really compose my solos. I'm pretty bad at improvising, I must say.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not proud of it, but yeah, I've never really done that. So I really have to compose a solo if I wanna go for that. I do improvise on a loop or something to get some ideas going, but to improvise a complete solo, I'm not good at that, and yeah, it's never I never focused on that
Mm-hmm.
with textures. So